Welcome to a Dual Digest podcast where two friends dive deep into the topics that matter.
From technology and AI to science, history, and global trends, we break down complex ideas and make them easy to understand.
Whether you're here for insights, entertainment, or just some good conversation, we've got you covered.
Just remember, stay curious, question everything, and keep exploring the world around you. And remember, every great conversation starts with a curious mind. Let's explore together.
Make sure to follow and subscribe.
All right, so today we're diving into Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money.
Yeah, great book.
You shared some excerpts with me,
Uh-huh.
and I got to say this is right up my alley.
Cool.
Personal anecdotes, historical examples,
Yeah,
economic analysis.
it's got it all.
It's like a buffet for the mind.
That's a good way to put it.
And today,
Yeah.
our deep dive is all about uncovering those hidden psychological forces
Yeah,
that shape our financial decisions.
exactly. It's about going beyond those traditional, how to invest tips and exploring those often overlooked
Right.
behavioral aspects of building wealth.
It really makes you question that age-old assumption that financial success is all about being a genius with numbers, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Housel really argues that doing well with money has more to do with understanding your own behavior than
Yeah.
being some kind of financial wizard.
So Housel kicks things off with a story about Ronald Reed,
Okay.
a janitor
Yeah,
who amassed an $8 million fortune.
great example.
It's a great example.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what's the key takeaway here for our listener? How does this relate to their own financial journey?
Well, I think Reed's story really highlights the power of consistency.
Okay.
He wasn't making risky bets or chasing hot stocks or anything.
Right.
He was simply saving diligently, investing consistently
Okay.
over a long period of time.
Got it.
And the real magic was in letting those small, consistent actions compound over decades.
Compound. Yeah.
That's where the magic happens.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But how can our listener harness this power of consistency in their own life?
Well, just think about your savings habits, for example.
Okay.
Even small amounts saved regularly can have a significant impact over time.
Gotcha.
So imagine setting aside just $50 a week.
$50 a week.
Yeah, just $50.
Okay.
Over 30 years
Okay.
with a modest 7% annual return.
Okay.
That
Assuming.
could grow to over $200,000.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's just one small example.
That's great.
The key is to start early, be consistent, and let compounding work its magic.
Okay. Consistency is key. Got it.
Yeah.
But Housel also talks about how our personal experiences with money
Yeah.
shape our financial behaviors.
Right.
I find that really intriguing.
Yeah.
It's like we're all carrying around these invisible money scripts
Yes.
in our heads,
Exactly.
from our past, from our upbringing.
And what might seem crazy to one person, right,
Yeah.
could make perfect sense to another
Yep.
based on their own financial history.
Yeah, totally.
So think about someone who grew up during a period of hyperinflation, for example.
Oh, yeah.
They might be extremely wary of holding cash
Yeah.
or investing in bonds,
Makes sense.
whereas someone who has only known a stable economy
Uh-huh.
might see those as perfectly reasonable options.
Totally different perspectives.
Totally.
So our past experiences with money, even those from our childhood,
Uh-huh.
can have a huge impact on how we approach financial decisions today.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it's not just about our personal experiences.
Okay.
Housel argues that there are these larger forces at play as well.
Okay.
Luck and risk.
Luck and risk.
These can significantly shape our financial outcomes.
It makes you wonder how much control we really have.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
For sure.
That reminds me of the story Housel tells about Bill Gates.
Okay.
He argues that while Gates was undoubtedly brilliant, ambitious,
Yeah.
his incredible success was also a product of being in the right place at the right time.
Right place, right time.
What if he hadn't gone to that specific school
Uh-huh.
with access to a computer in those early days of computing?
Right.
Would Microsoft even exist?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it?
It is.
And it makes you wonder, how much of anyone's success is due to skill and hard work
Right.
versus just sheer luck
Like, were they just lucky to be born in the right family,
Yeah.
the right country,
at the right time.
at the right time
The right time.
to ride that wave?
For every Bill Gates, there are countless others who were equally talented,
Yeah.
but didn't get that lucky break.
And on the flip side, there's risk.
Whisk, yep.
It's like Housel's point about Kent Evans,
Oh, yeah.
Gates' friend who tragically died in a climbing accident.
Right.
He was, by all accounts, as brilliant as Gates.
As brilliant as Gates.
It really highlights that financial success, or any kind of success really,
Mhm.
is rarely a straight line.
It's not a straight line,
It's a
no.
winding road with unexpected detours.
It really is.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's not always going to go according to plan.
And acknowledging the role of luck and risk isn't about, diminishing anyone's achievements. It's
Yeah.
about having a more realistic and nuanced view of how things unfold.
Yeah,
Recognizing that while we can control our effort and our decisions,
right.
there are these external forces that can influence our outcomes.
That's a humbling thought.
It is, yeah.
It reminds us to be a little more grateful for the good fortune we've had
Uh-huh.
and a little more understanding of those who haven't been as lucky.
Absolutely.
It's about empathy, right?
Yeah, and that leads us to another key point that Housel explores, the concept of enough.
Enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about enough.
Yeah.
This is something that really resonated with me.
Okay.
When I read the book,
Uh-huh.
Housel shares that great anecdote from John Bogle,
Oh, yeah, John
the
Bogle.
founder of Vanguard,
Yeah, Vanguard.
about attending a party
Yeah.
hosted by a billionaire hedge fund manager.
Okay.
The author, Joseph Heller, who wrote Catch-22, was there,
Okay.
and he made a brilliant observation.
What's that?
He pointed out that while the hedge fund manager might make more money in a single day than Heller had earned
Yeah.
from his wildly successful book,
Okay.
Heller had something
Yeah.
the billionaire would never have. Enough.
Enough. I love it.
It highlights this often overlooked aspect of wealth,
Yeah.
contentment. Right?
Contentment. Yeah.
It's not just about how much money you have,
Right.
but about feeling satisfied with what you have.
That's right.
Isn't it?
Exactly. Because the relentless pursuit of more,
Yeah,
can sometimes lead to disastrous consequences.
totally.
Housel contrasts Heller's contentment with the story of Rajat Gupta.
Yes, Gupta,
Gupta.
the wildly successful businessman who seemingly had it all.
Yeah.
He was the CEO of McKinsey, worth over $100 million, sat on the boards of major companies,
Yeah.
even worked with Bill Gates on philanthropic projects.
Wow.
But it wasn't enough for him.
He wasn't enough, no.
He wanted to be a billionaire, part of that exclusive club.
Yeah.
And that desire, that feeling of never having enough,
Uh-huh.
led him down a path of insider trading that ultimately landed him in prison.
Yeah. A cautionary tale for sure.
It's a cautionary tale for sure.
Yeah.
It reminds us that sometimes, even with incredible success,
Uh-huh.
that feeling of enough can be elusive.
Yes.
And that can lead us to make choices that jeopardize everything we've worked for.
Yeah, it really underscores the power of our psychology, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Those internal drives and desires, which can often override logic and reason when it comes to money.
So what can our listener do to cultivate that sense of enough? It's easy to get caught up in that comparison game, that feeling that we always need more,
Right.
especially in today's social media-driven world.
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that enough is a mindset,
Okay?
not a number.
Mindset, not a number.
Yeah, it's about shifting our focus from what we lack
Yeah.
to what we have.
Okay.
It's about appreciating our blessings, celebrating our achievements, and recognizing that true wealth isn't just about our net worth,
Right.
but about our overall well-being.
Our well-being, our happiness, our relationships,
Yeah,
all of that.
it's about, defining what success means to us on our own terms, right?
Yeah.
Not letting those external measures of success
Right.
dictate our happiness or our self-worth.
It's about finding that internal compass
It is.
and letting that guide us.
Absolutely. It's about aligning our financial goals
Uh-huh.
with our values, our passions, and our vision for the life we want to create.
It's about finding that sweet spot
Yeah.
where financial security
Yeah.
and personal fulfillment intersects.
That's a great point.
It's about being intentional with our money, using it as a tool to create the life we want,
Yes.
rather than letting it control us.
Right.
And that brings us to another important concept that Housel explores,
Okay.
the power of compounding.
Ah, yes, the magic of compounding.
Compounding?
It's like that snowball rolling down a hill, gathering more and more snow as it goes, growing exponentially over time.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is.
That something so small could become so big
Uh-huh.
just by repeating itself over and over again.
Yeah.
Housel compares it to the formation of ice ages.
Really?
It's not always about those frigid winters.
Uh-huh.
It's about moderately cool summers.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, I have to admit that surprised me. How does that work exactly?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
If a summer isn't warm enough
Yeah,
to melt all the snow from the previous winter,
right.
you're left with a thin layer of ice.
Okay.
And that ice makes it easier for snow to accumulate the following winter,
Uh-huh.
which further increases the odds of snow sticking around during the next summer.
Ooh,
And
yeah,
so on.
Gotcha.
It's a chain reaction.
So it's like those small changes compounded over time,
Yeah.
can have a massive impact. It's not always about those big, dramatic
Yeah.
events. It's about those subtle shifts,
Yeah.
those seemingly insignificant factors.
That can lead to these huge transformations.
And this same principle applies to money.
Money, yep.
Think about Warren Buffett,
Oh, yeah, Warren Buffett,
arguably the most successful investor of all time.
the Oracle in the Omaha.
His wealth isn't just due to his investment skills,
Right,
but also because he's been investing for a very long time.
right.
He started young and let those returns compound over decades.
That's the key.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like giving yourself a head start in the race.
Exactly.
The earlier you start, the more time those returns have to compound
Yep.
and snowball into something substantial.
That's the beauty of it.
But it's not just about starting early.
No.
It's about consistency.
Consistent.
It's about investing regularly,
Uh-huh.
weathering those inevitable ups and downs in the market,
Right.
and letting those returns work their magic over time.
That's how you win the game.
So are you saying our listeners should start investing as soon as possible?
I mean, the earlier the better, of
Yeah.
course. Even small contributions made regularly can have a significant impact over time thanks to the power of compounding.
I get it. Start early. Be consistent.
That's the recipe.
And let that compounding magic work its wonders.
Exactly.
It's like planting a tree, right?
Yeah, good analogy.
You might not see much growth in the first few years,
Mm-hmm.
but with time and consistent care,
Right.
it can grow into something magnificent.
It's amazing how that works.
It is.
And speaking of things that require patience and persistence,
Okay.
Housel goes on to emphasize another key principle.
Okay, what's that? Survival.
Revival. That sounds a bit dramatic.
I know, right?
Are we talking about financial Bear Grylls here?
Haha, not quite.
Okay.
But it's about recognizing that building wealth
Yeah.
isn't just about earning high returns.
Okay.
It's about staying in the game long enough
Right.
to let compounding work its magic.
It's like a marathon, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's not just about speed. It's about pacing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you cross the finish line.
And not burning out along the way.
Exactly.
Housel contrasts the stories of two investors,
Okay.
Jesse Livermore and Abraham Germansky.
Okay, tell me about them.
Well, Livermore made a fortune during the 1929 stock market crash,
Oh.
but eventually lost everything,
Oh, no.
due to overly risky bets.
So he got greedy. You could say that Germansky was a real estate developer who was also ruined by the crash.
So two different paths.
Yeah, but both met tragic ends.
That's so sad.
It is.
So they both achieved success, but ultimately couldn't sustain it?
Yeah.
What's the key takeaway here for our listener?
Well, I think it highlights the difference between getting wealthy and staying wealthy.
Okay.
Livermore was brilliant at making money,
Uh-huh.
but terrible at managing risk.
So he took on too much risk.
Yeah, he couldn't resist those big bets.
Gotcha.
Germansky, it seems, couldn't handle the psychological blow
Yeah.
of losing his fortune.
The emotional toll.
It can be devastating.
It can be, for sure.
It underscores that financial success isn't just about accumulating wealth.
Right.
It's about preserving it,
Protecting it.
managing risk, and having the resilience to withstand those inevitable setbacks.
It's about building that financial and emotional resilience.
Absolutely.
So we need to be prepared, both financially and emotionally,
Yeah.
for those inevitable market fluctuations.
The market's going to do what the market's going to do.
We can't control it. We can only control our response to it.
And that leads us to another crucial principle.
Okay, hit me.
The importance of having a margin of safety.
The margin of safety. Okay.
Yeah.
So what exactly does margin of safety mean in a financial context?
Good question.
Is it just about having an emergency fund?
Well, it's certainly a part of it,
Okay.
but it's also a broader mindset.
Okay.
A way of approaching financial decisions with a bit more caution.
Gotcha.
Recognizing that things don't always go according to plan.
So it's about expecting the unexpected.
Yeah, exactly.
Building in that buffer that can help us absorb those financial shocks.
Think about the U.S. economy.
Okay.
Over the past 170 years,
That's a long time.
it's experienced numerous recessions, wars, periods of high inflation.
Yeah, we've been through a lot,
A lot.
yet it has still managed to grow tremendously.
It's pretty remarkable.
It is. It really is.
So what's the secret to that resilience?
Yeah, what is it?
I think it's about having those built-in safeguards.
Okay.
Those systems and policies that help absorb those shocks.
Okay.
Keep things from completely falling apart.
So how can our listener apply this concept of margin of safety to their own financial life?
Well, it starts with assessing your current financial situation.
All right, take a look at where you stand.
Right. Do you have an emergency fund?
Okay, that's a good first step.
Could you build a bigger buffer into your budget?
Okay, so maybe cut back on some expenses.
Exactly. Are you diversified across different asset classes?
Diversification, that's important.
Very important.
Spread the risk.
Exactly. The goal is to create that cushion
Okay.
that can help you weather those financial storms.
Weather the storms.
And come out stronger on the other side.
Stronger, better, more resilient.
Exactly.
I like that it's about being prepared, not paranoid.
That's a good way to put it.
It's about having that peace of mind, knowing that you can handle those unexpected events.
Yeah.
Without derailing your financial goals.
Exactly. And it brings us to another principle.
Oh, there's more.
Haha, there's always more.
Bait on me.
Housel emphasizes the importance of embracing the fact
Yeah.
that you'll be wrong sometimes.
Wait, so it's okay to make mistakes?
It's inevitable, right?
I thought investing was all about picking winners.
It would be nice if it were that simple.
Yeah, it would.
But the reality is, even the most successful investors are wrong
Okay.
a significant portion of the time.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to manage those mistakes,
Right.
to minimize your losses when you're wrong,
Okay.
and to maximize your gains when you're right.
So it's not about being right all the time.
Right.
It's about managing the downside, capitalizing on the upside.
Exactly. And Housel uses the example of Walt Disney to illustrate this point.
Well, this should be good. I love Disney stories.
Well, you might be surprised to learn
What's that?
that Disney's early ventures were mostly financial failures. He faced numerous setbacks and financial struggles in his early career.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Walt Disney as anything but a success.
It is.
But it's true.
Mm.
He faced significant challenges.
So what kept him going?
He was persistent, passionate,
Okay.
and willing to learn from his mistakes.
So it's about having that growth mindset,
Yeah.
even when it comes to our financial mistakes.
It's about seeing those setbacks as opportunities
Okay.
for learning and growth.
Turning those lemons into lemonade.
Exactly. And Housel argues that this principle applies to investing as well.
Okay.
It's not about avoiding losses altogether.
Right.
It's about learning from them, adapting, continuing to invest for the long haul.
So it's about recognizing that setbacks are an inevitable part of the journey.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating concept
Okay, I'm ready.
that Housel explores.
Lay it on me.
The idea that tails drive everything.
Okay, tails.
Yeah.
I'm all ears.
All right.
What exactly does Housel mean by that?
He's referring to those outlier events.
Okay.
Those rare occurrences that have a disproportionate impact on the overall results.
So like those black swan events, those unexpected occurrences
Similar, yeah.
that can shake things up and change everything.
Yeah, but Housel emphasizes that we often underestimate the power of these tail events.
Okay.
Because we tend to focus on the few huge successes.
The big wins.
Right.
The outlier.
While ignoring the many failures that occur along the way.
So we see the success stories,
Mm-hmm.
like Amazon or the iPhone,
Right.
but we don't see all those other companies that tried and failed.
Exactly. So many companies fail.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to investing,
Yeah.
this means recognizing that a small number of companies or investments
Right.
can drive the vast majority of returns.
A small number.
So should we all be trying to pick those winning lottery tickets?
Good question.
Those outlier stocks that are going to skyrocket in value?
It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
If not impossible, to predict which companies will become those tail events.
So what's the alternative?
Well, instead of trying to pick winners,
Okay.
Housel suggests focusing on building a diversified portfolio.
Diversification.
It's a key principle
Right.
that can withstand those fluctuations, both positive and negative.
So it's back to that idea of a margin of safety.
Yeah,
Spreading your bets.
right.
Not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Because in a world driven by tails,
Uh-huh.
those outlier events,
Yeah.
flexibility and adaptability are key.
You have to be able to roll with the punches.
It's a fascinating way to look at things.
It is.
It reminds us that the world is full of surprises,
Yeah.
both good and bad.
Both good and bad.
And the best we can do is be prepared,
Right.
have a plan,
Yeah.
but also be open to adjusting that plan as needed.
Exactly. And that leads us to another important idea
Okay,
that Housel explores.
what's that?
The idea that when it comes to money,
Yeah.
it's often better to be reasonable
Okay,
than to be purely rational.
that sounds a bit contradictory,
I know, it's a bit counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Aren't we always supposed to make rational decisions?
especially when it comes to our finances.
Yeah, that's what we're taught.
Right,
But Housel argues that in the real world,
okay,
where our decisions are influenced by a complex web
Mm.
of emotions, relationships, personal circumstances.
it's messy.
It is messy.
Real life is messy.
Right.
Yeah.
Those purely rational choices
Right.
might not always be the best ones.
So are you saying we should just throw logic out the window?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Let our emotions run wild.
No, I get it.
No, it's about recognizing that there are times when emotional decisions
Okay.
make more sense than purely rational ones.
Okay.
Especially when those decisions align with our values, our
Uh-huh.
goals, and our overall well-being.
So it's about considering those non-financial factors.
Right.
Those things that matter to us beyond just the numbers.
Exactly.
Okay, can you give our listeners an example of what you mean?
Sure, let's say you're passionate about renewable energy,
Okay.
and you believe that investing in clean tech companies
Uh-huh.
is not only financially sound, but also aligns with your values.
Okay, so it's about putting your money where your values are.
Exactly. A purely rational approach might suggest investing in a broad market index fund.
Right, because those are statistically more likely to deliver solid returns.
Yeah, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
But if you're truly passionate about clean energy,
Yeah.
you might choose to invest a portion of your portfolio in those companies,
Okay.
even if it means slightly lower expected returns.
So it's about finding that balance
Exactly.
between the head and the heart,
It is.
the rational, the emotional.
And Housel points out that there are several other instances.
Oh, there are more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Where it's perfectly reasonable
Yeah.
to deviate from those purely rational financial choices.
I'm curious, what are some other examples?
Well, think about investing in companies that you understand
Okay.
and believe in.
Okay.
You know, those businesses whose products you use and admire?
I do that.
You do.
Yeah, I have a few stocks in companies whose products I genuinely love.
Oh, cool.
It's to feel like I'm part of their success story.
Yeah, and that's perfectly reasonable.
Okay.
Even though index fund might statistically be a better investment for most people,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with owning individual stocks,
Yeah.
especially if it makes you more engaged and interested in the process.
So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between the rational and the reasonable,
Uh-huh.
making choices that are both financially sound and emotionally satisfying.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that personal finance is personal.
It is. It really is.
It's about finding what works best for you,
Right.
your circumstances, your values,
Yeah.
even if it means deviating slightly from those textbook financial strategies.
It's about tailoring those financial principles
Uh-huh.
to fit our own unique needs and goals.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point
Oh, okay.
that Housel makes.
All right, I'm ready for it.
The historians as prophets fallacy.
Okay, another fallacy.
Another fallacy.
Lay it on me.
All right.
What's this one all about?
It's about the danger of relying too heavily on historical data
Okay.
to predict the future.
Right.
Especially in fields like investing, where
Uh-huh.
innovation and change are constantly reshaping the landscape.
So are you saying we should just ignore history altogether?
No, not at all.
Okay.
History is incredibly valuable for
Hmm.
understanding trends, identifying patterns, learning from past mistakes.
Right.
But it's important to recognize that the past isn't always a perfect predictor of
Right.
the future,
Right.
especially when it comes to money.
Yeah, things change.
Things change, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because things change.
Haha, yeah, I get it.
New technologies emerge, new industries develop, new regulations are put their place.
The world is constantly evolving.
It never stops. And those changes can invalidate even the most well-established historical trends.
So it's like trying to navigate a new city
Yeah,
using an outdated map.
that's a good analogy.
You might get a general sense of the layout.
Uh-huh. House speaker.
So it's like trying to navigate a new city using an outdated map.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
You might get a general sense of the layout,
Mm-hmm.
but you're likely to miss some key landmarks,
Yeah.
end up getting lost.
You need an updated map
Right.
to navigate effectively.
And that's what Housel is saying about using historical data in finance.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of the limitations, to be open to new possibilities, and to adjust our thinking as the world changes around us.
Absolutely.
But how do we avoid falling into this historians as prophets trap?
Mm.
How do we use historical data effectively without letting it blind it to those emerging trends and shifts?
It's tough, you know?
Yeah.
It's about being aware of the limitations.
Okay.
Recognize that the future is inherently uncertain
Uh-huh.
and that relying solely on past trends can be misleading.
So we have to be open to new information, new possibilities,
Exactly.
and be willing to adapt our thinking as needed.
Yeah, it's about being flexible.
So it's about being open to new possibilities, new innovations, and those unexpected turns that can reshape the financial landscape.
Precisely. And it's about being adaptable.
Okay.
Willing to adjust your strategy as the world changes and as new information becomes available.
It's like being a sailor,
Okay.
navigating by the stars,
Yeah.
but also being ready to adjust your course when the winds shift.
That's a great analogy.
And speaking of stories and how they can shape our perceptions,
Yeah.
Housel goes on to explore the power of narratives in influencing our financial decisions.
Narratives, yeah, they're powerful.
Okay, narratives.
Uh-huh.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how stories play a role in our money choices.
Well, we humans are storytelling creatures.
It's how we make sense of the world.
Exactly. We love a good narrative,
Yeah.
a compelling explanation of how things work,
Uh-huh.
why things happen,
Right.
and what the future wants.
We want to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
We crave that predictability.
And those stories,
Yeah.
even if they're not entirely accurate or complete,
Right.
can have a powerful influence on our decisions.
So are you saying that our financial decisions are driven more by emotion than by logic?
Not necessarily. It's not that logic goes out the window. It's
Okay.
that stories, those compelling narratives,
Yeah.
can provide the framework through which we interpret information
Okay.
and make choices.
So it's like those stories, those narratives, set the stage for our financial decisions.
Exactly. They provide the context, the background music for our financial decisions.
The soundtrack to our money choices.
And Housel points out that this tendency to be swayed by narratives can sometimes lead us astray,
Oh, okay.
especially when those narratives are fueled by hype, fear, or wishful thinking.
Okay, I need an example. Help me understand this, sister.
Sure, think about the housing bubble of the mid-2000s.
Oh, yeah.
It was fueled by this narrative
Okay.
that house prices would always go up,
Right.
that real estate was a foolproof investment.
Safe as houses.
Exactly. And this narrative was so strong that it overshadowed those warning signs,
Yeah.
those red flags that in hindsight seem obvious.
Yeah.
People were taking out risky loan,
Right.
buying properties they couldn't afford.
Because they thought they could always flip them for a profit.
Exactly. All because they believed the story.
The story.
That housing prices would continue to rise indefinitely.
And we all know how that ended,
We do.
with a devastating crash
Yeah.
that sent shockwaves through the global economy.
It was a painful lesson.
It was, for a lot of people.
And that's a prime example of how narratives,
Yeah.
even those that seem plausible or compelling,
Uh-huh.
can sometimes lead us to make irrational decisions.
So how do we protect ourselves from being swept away by these misleading narratives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I think it's about being critical thinkers,
Ooh.
questioning assumptions,
Right.
and digging deeper than just the surface-level story.
Right, just take things at face value.
Exactly. It's about looking at the facts,
Okay.
considering different perspectives,
Right.
and not letting those seductive narratives completely cloud our judgment.
So it's about being skeptical, doing our own research, and not just blindly following the herd.
You got it, because when it comes to money, those captivating narratives can be both alluring and dangerous.
It's like those sirens in Greek mythology,
Oh, yeah, good one.
luring sailors to their doom with their enchanting song.
That's a perfect analogy. And on that note,
Okay.
let's delve into another fascinating concept that House will explore.
All right, I'm ready.
The idea that true wealth is about having control over your time.
Okay, I like that. We
Uh-huh.
touched on this earlier,
Uh-huh.
but I'm eager to explore this further. Tell me more about this idea of wealth as time.
Think about it. What's the most valuable resource we have?
Time, of course.
Time, exactly.
We can't create more of it, we can't buy more of it, and we can't get it back once it's gone.
It's the one thing we can never get more of.
And yet we often waste it, don't we?
We do.
On things that don't really matter.
Yeah, we get caught up in the busyness of life.
And forget what's truly important.
And Housel argues that money's greatest intrinsic value
Yeah.
is its ability to give you more control over your time.
To give you back that freedom.
Exactly.
To choose how you spend your days.
To free you from the constraints of a job you hate.
Okay.
To allow you to pursue your passions.
Yeah.
Spend more time with loved ones. To simply live life on your own terms.
It's about having the freedom and flexibility to design your own life.
Yes.
To choose how you spend your precious hours and days. It's about not being a slave to the clock.
Precisely.
It's about having the option to say no to things you don't want to do.
Uh-huh.
And yes to those things that bring you joy and fulfillment.
And having that financial security gives you that option.
It's like having that financial cushion that allows you to pursue those dreams
Yeah.
that might otherwise be out of reach.
Exactly. And Housel shares a personal story that beautifully illustrates this concept.
Oh, okay. Tell me about it.
He talks about his decision to quit his job and pursue music full-time.
Wow.
Once he had saved enough to cover his living expenses.
So he traded a steady paycheck for the freedom to follow his passion.
He did. It was a bold move.
It was. Did he ever regret that decision?
He says no, not at all.
Wow.
He emphasizes that decision, that act of using his savings to buy his freedom,
Yeah.
had a far greater impact on his happiness than any subsequent financial success.
That's really inspiring.
It is.
It's a powerful reminder that money, when used wisely,
Uh-huh.
can be a tool for unlocking those things that truly matter to us.
Right.
our passions, our relationships, our overall well-being. It's about using money to create a life
Yeah.
that's rich with experiences, not just possessions.
Exactly. And it reinforces the idea that true wealth
Yeah.
isn't just about the numbers in your bank account.
Uh-huh.
It's about having the freedom and flexibility to live life on your own terms.
So it's about asking ourselves,
Yeah.
what would I do if money were no object?
That's a great question.
And then figuring out how to make those dreams a reality.
Yeah, make it happen.
It's about taking control of our own narrative.
But realistically, for most people, money is a constraint.
It is.
How do we balance that need for financial security
Right.
with that desire for freedom and flexibility?
It's a tough question.
It is. It's a constant balancing act for most of us.
Yeah.
I think it starts with being intentional with our money,
Okay.
using it as a tool to create the life we want,
Right.
rather than letting it control us.
So making conscious choices, prioritizing our spending, aligning our financial goals with our values,
Yeah, all of that.
and recognizing that financial freedom is often a journey,
It is.
not a destination.
It's about making those small, consistent steps
Yeah.
towards a life that's both financially secure and personally fulfilling.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot where financial security and personal fulfillment intersect.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to a concept we discussed earlier,
Okay.
invisible wealth. I'm still intrigued by that idea.
Yeah.
How can something be wealthy if you can't see it?
Think about it. We often equate wealth with those outward displays of affluence.
The fancy cars, the big houses, the designer clothes.
All that stuff.
The bling.
But Housel argues that true wealth is often hidden.
Hidden. Okay.
It's about the choices you make,
Uh-huh.
the things you don't buy,
Okay.
the restraint you exercise
Right.
in order to secure your financial future.
So it's about those delayed gratifications,
Yeah.
those sacrifices you make today
Uh-huh.
in order to build a better tomorrow.
That's the key.
It's about living below your means, saving diligently, investing wisely.
All those unglamorous things.
It's about building that financial foundation that's not always visible
Right?
to the outside world.
It's the invisible stuff that really matters.
Exactly. And Housel illustrates this concept by sharing his experience working as a valet.
Oh, interesting.
He noticed that many of the people who drove those expensive cars,
Uh-huh.
those outward symbols of wealth,
Yeah.
were actually living paycheck to paycheck,
Really?
spending a huge portion of their income to maintain that facade of affluence.
Wow, keeping up with the Joneses.
They might have looked wealthy,
Yeah.
but their finances were precarious.
I'll show. No substance.
It's like they were trapped in this cycle of keeping up with the Joneses,
Yeah.
constantly chasing that next status symbol
Right.
without ever truly achieving financial security.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is. It's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving.
Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover.
And meanwhile, there were others, like Ronald Reed,
Oh, yeah, the janitor.
the janitor who amassed millions,
Millions.
who lived modestly,
Uh-huh.
saved diligently, and invested wisely.
Quietly building his fortune.
Their wealth was invisible to the casual observer,
Yeah.
hidden away in bank accounts and investment portfolios.
That's where the real wealth is.
They weren't flashy, but they were financially secure.
They had the last laugh.
They did. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it?
It is.
That true wealth isn't about the things you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the security, the freedom,
Right.
and the options that come from having a solid financial foundation.
Exactly.
About building that invisible fortress
Yeah.
that protects you from financial storms
Mm-hmm.
and allows you to live life on your own terms.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly, and it highlights a key point that Housel emphasizes throughout the book,
Yeah.
that much of personal finance is about those choices that we make behind the scenes.
Right.
Those decisions that aren't always visible to the outside world,
The invisible stuff.
but that have a profound impact on our long-term financial well-being.
It's the foundation.
It's about building those good habits, those invisible systems,
Yeah.
that over time compound into significant wealth and freedom.
That's the key.
Speaking of compounding,
Yeah.
let's talk about the actual act of investing.
Okay.
How does Housel address that topic?
Well, he dives into several key principles that are more about mindset
Mindset.
than
Okay.
specific investment strategies.
So it's about the mental game.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And he starts with the idea of accepting that you'll be wrong a
Okay.
significant portion of the time.
Wait, so it's okay to make mistakes?
Mistakes are part of the process.
I thought investing was all about picking winners
Yeah, I wish it were that easy.
and avoiding losers.
Right, if only it were that simple.
It would be.
But even the most successful investors
Yeah.
are wrong a significant portion of the time.
So nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect, no.
The key is to manage those mistakes,
Manage the mistakes.
to minimize your losses when you're wrong,
Uh-huh.
and to maximize your gains when you're right,
It's about managing risk.
not eliminating it entirely.
Yeah.
So it's not about being right all the time.
No.
It's about being wrong less often.
Right.
And making sure those wrong calls don't wipe you out.
That's the key. Got to stay in the game.
Stay in the game, okay?
Housel uses a great analogy to explain this.
Oh, I love analogies. What is it?
The card counter in blackjack.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does a card counter relate to investing?
Well, a skilled card counter
Okay.
knows that blackjack is a game of probabilities,
Okay.
not certainties.
You can't predict every hand.
Exactly. They understand the odds.
Okay.
They adjust their bets accordingly.
Right.
And they accept that they'll sometimes lose,
Yeah.
even when the odds seem to be in their favor.
So it's about tilting the odds in your favor,
Yeah.
but also being prepared for those inevitable swings of luck.
You got to be ready for anything.
And the successful card counter knows that the key is to stay in the game long enough
Yes.
to let those favorable odds play out.
That's the key. You can't win if you're not playing.
They don't bet everything on a single hand
Right.
because they know that even a small chance of losing big
Yeah.
can wipe them out.
It's about managing risk.
Preserving capital
Uh-huh.
and giving yourself the opportunity to keep playing
Right.
even when those short-term outcomes don't go your way.
Exactly. And Housel argues that this same principle applies to investing.
Okay, so how does that translate to the stock market?
It's about understanding that there will be times when you're wrong,
Okay.
times when the market turns against you.
The market doesn't always go up,
It doesn't.
so we have to be prepared for those downturns,
You got to have a plan
plan.
to manage your risk
right?
and to have a margin of safety
That margin of safety again?
that allows you to withstand those inevitable downturns
Okay.
without losing everything.
So it's about having that cushion, that buffer
Yeah,
that helps you absorb those financial shocks and come out on the other side.
that's what it's all about, weathering the storms.
And that leads us to another crucial concept
Okay.
that Housel emphasizes.
I'm listening.
The idea that investing has a price,
Okay.
and that price is volatility.
Volatility, yeah, that's the price of admission.
Okay, volatility, that's a word that makes a lot of investors nervous.
It does.
What does Housel mean by that?
He's talking about those inevitable ups and downs in the market.
Okay.
Those swings in asset prices
Yeah.
that can make even the most seasoned investor feel a bit queasy.
It's like a roller coaster ride.
It
It
is.
can have those highs and lows.
So are you saying we just have to grit our teeth and endure those wild market swings?
We can't avoid them, can we?
We can't.
So how do we deal with them?
Housel argues that volatility is the price we pay for those long-term market returns.
Okay.
It's the fee, the cost of admission to this wealth-building game.
So if you want to play the game,
Yeah.
you got to pay the price.
And like most things in life, the
Right.
bigger the potential rewards,
Mhm.
higher the price you have to pay.
Higher risk, higher reward.
That's the trade-off.
So it's like a roller coaster ride. You wouldn't expect to experience those exhilarating highs
Uh-huh.
without enduring those stomach-churning drops along the way.
You got to take the good with the bad.
Exactly. And Housel uses some fascinating examples.
Oh, I like examples. What are they?
To illustrate this point, he points out that Netflix stock,
Netflix.
despite returning more than 35,000%
Wow, that's a lot.
from 2002 to 2018,
Okay.
traded below its previous all-time highs on 94% of those days.
Really?
Yeah, so even for one of the most successful companies of the 21st century,
Uh-huh.
the journey was anything but smooth.
It was a bunky ride.
It was, and he points out that Monster Beverage,
Monster.
another stock that delivered astronomical returns,
Right.
traded below its previous high 95% of the time
Wow.
during its incredible run.
So even those big winners
Yeah,
had their ups and downs.
they did. It really highlights that those headline-grabbing returns
Yeah.
often mask a much more turbulent reality.
It's not always a smooth ride to the top.
And that's where Housel's key message comes in.
What's that?
He argues that the only way to successfully navigate this volatile landscape
Uh-huh.
is to accept that volatility is an inherent part of the game.
You can't avoid it.
It's the price we pay for those long-term gains.
Exactly. So you have to be comfortable with it.
So it's about shifting our mindset from viewing volatility as a threat
Okay.
to seeing it as an opportunity.
It's a chance to buy low.
Precisely. Because those who can stomach the volatility,
Uh-huh.
those who can ride out those market storms without panicking,
Right.
are the ones who are most likely to reap those long-term rewards.
They're the ones who come out ahead.
It's like being a surfer, riding those waves,
I like that.
embracing the power of the ocean
Yeah.
instead of trying to fight against
You
it.
can't fight the waves.
You can't, you'll just get exhausted.
And Housel points out that those who try to avoid volatility,
Yeah.
who try to time the market,
Okay.
or chase those quick gains,
Right, trying to get rich quick.
often end up paying a much higher price in the long run.
So it's like trying to cut corners.
Yeah.
To find a shortcut to success,
Mm-hmm.
You might save a little time or effort in the short term,
Right.
but you often end up paying a much steeper price down the road.
It's like taking a shortcut through a dangerous neighborhood.
You might get to your destination faster,
Yeah.
but you might also get mugged.
Exactly. And Housel argues that the true cost of avoiding volatility
Okay.
is often missed opportunities.
Missed opportunities.
Those potential gains that you miss out on
Right.
because you're too afraid to ride out the rough patches.
So it's back to that idea of patience,
Yeah.
of staying the course, of recognizing that volatility is the price of admission to this long-term wealth-building game.
It's the price we pay for the potential rewards.
But how do we know when to stay the course and when to adjust our strategy?
That's a great question.
Isn't there a risk of being too stubborn,
Yeah.
of clinging to a losing investment for too long?
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance.
It is.
I think it comes down to understanding your investment thesis,
Okay.
the reasons why you invested in something in the first place.
So have a clear rationale
Yeah.
for why you're investing in something.
Exactly. If those fundamental reasons haven't changed,
Okay.
then it might make sense to ride out those short-term fluctuations.
So don't panic sell just because the market is down.
Right, but if the underlying story has changed,
Clear.
if those core reasons for investing are no longer valid,
Uh-huh.
then it might be time to reevaluate.
So it's about being informed,
Yeah.
staying engaged,
Keep your eyes on the prize.
and being willing to adapt as needed.
Exactly, and it's about having a plan,
Okay.
knowing your risk tolerance,
Uh-huh.
and not being afraid to seek advice from a trusted financial professional.
Okay, great advice.
Kind of need it.
Those are all great points.
Good.
I'm definitely going to be thinking about these concepts as I navigate my own financial journey.
I think we all should.
I think so too.
It's important stuff.
And that's what Housel is trying to encourage with his book,
Yeah.
to get us thinking about these deeper psychological forces that shape our financial decisions.
It's not just about the numbers. It's
Yeah.
about understanding our own behaviors and motivations.
Well said. And on that note, let's take a short break and come back to explore some more
Okay.
of the fascinating insights that Morgan Housel offers in The Psychology of Money. Okay, so we've been talking about volatility and risk and, the importance of having a solid investment strategy.
Uh-huh.
But Housel also dives into some fascinating territory, I think,
Oh, right.
when he discusses
Yeah.
how our perceptions of the economy
Right.
are shaped by these grand narratives
Yeah, the stories we tell ourselves.
that often overshadow the reality of the situation.
Exactly. It's like we're all living in these stories about the economy,
Yeah.
whether they're tales of impending doom
Right.
or promises of boundless prosperity.
Hey, the boomer bust.
And those narratives can have a powerful influence on our behaviors,
Yeah?
our decisions, and even the actual outcomes we experience.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
In a way, it is.
I'm curious, can you give an example of how these economic narratives play out in the real world?
Sure, think about the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis.
Okay, 2008, that was a tough time.
It was. The economy was in free fall, unemployment was skyrocketing.
Yeah.
There's this pervasive sense of fear and uncertainty.
It felt like the world was ending for a lot of people.
It did, and for some, it really was.
It was definitely a scary time.
Yeah.
I remember those headlines about banks collapsing, the
Uh-huh.
stock market plummeting.
Yeah, it was a mess.
It felt like we were on the brink of another Great Depression.
Exactly, and that narrative, that story of impending economic doom,
Yeah.
it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, okay, I see.
Consumers tightened their belts.
Yeah.
Businesses held back on investments.
Right, everyone was afraid to spend.
And the economy spiraled further downward.
So it's like those narratives, those stories we tell ourselves about the economy can actually influence the economy itself.
Precisely. And Housel points out that the opposite is also true.
Oh, interesting.
A positive narrative, a story of economic growth and opportunity,
Okay.
can create a virtuous cycle,
Okay.
boosting confidence, encouraging investment, and ultimately driving economic expansion.
So it's like a feedback loop.
Yeah, our beliefs can shape reality.
It's fascinating to think about how these stories, these narratives, can shape our perceptions and influence our actions,
Right.
even when those narratives don't always align with the underlying reality.
It's like we're all living in these parallel universes,
Yeah.
each with its own economic story.
And those stories can have a real impact on our decisions and behaviors.
They can, and that's why it's so important to be aware of them.
That's a great way to put it. But if we're all susceptible to these narratives,
Yeah.
how do we make sure we're not being swayed by those stories that might not be accurate
Right, good question.
or helpful?
Well, Housel argues that the first step is awareness.
Awareness, right?
We need to recognize that narratives are powerful,
Uh-huh.
but they're not always reliable guides to economic reality.
Okay, so don't just blindly believe everything you hear.
Exactly. We need to be critical thinkers.
Okay.
Question those prevailing narratives.
Question everything.
And make sure our decisions are based on facts and sound reasoning.
Right, not just emotions.
Not just on those emotionally charged stories that can sometimes cloud our judgment.
So it's about doing our own research, considering different perspectives.
Yeah.
Not just blindly accepting those dominant narratives that we're often bombarded with.
Exactly. It's about being informed, being discerning,
Right.
and being willing to challenge those stories that might not be serving us.
That's a great point. And speaking of stories that might not be serving us,
Okay.
Housel also talks about why pessimism often seems more persuasive than optimism, particularly when it comes to money. Why do we seem so drawn to those doom and gloom economic predictions?
It's an interesting question, isn't it?
It is.
Why are we so fascinated by the negative?
It seems like bad news always gets more attention.
Well, Housel offers several explanations.
Okay, I'm listening.
First, he points out that money is ubiquitous.
Okay,
It touches every aspect of our lives.
it does. You're right.
So when something bad happens in the economy,
Like a recession?
a recession, a stock market crash, a financial crisis,
Right, those big events.
it tends to affect everyone,
Yeah,
capturing our attention and amplifying our anxieties.
like a ripple effect.
It is. Those negative economic events can spread quickly,
Yeah.
impacting our jobs, our investments, our ability to buy those things we need and want. And this ubiquity of money makes those negative economic stories more salient,
More noticeable?
more immediate, and more persuasive than those stories of slow, steady growth.
It's like that old saying, no news is good news.
Exactly, because those positive economic developments often happen gradually,
Okay.
incrementally, almost invisibly.
Right, it's like watching grass grow.
They don't have that same attention-grabbing urgency as those sudden, dramatic economic downturns.
It's like watching a plant grow.
Yeah.
You might not notice those tiny changes day to day, but over time, that plant can transform into something magnificent.
That's true.
But if that plant suddenly wilts or gets eaten by a bug,
Oh, yeah.
it's much more noticeable,
It is.
more dramatic, and more likely to grab our attention.
We're wired to notice those threats.
That's a great analogy. And it leads us to Housel's second point,
Okay, what's that?
that progress often happens too slowly to notice.
Right.
But setbacks happen too quickly to ignore. So it's back to that attention-grabbing nature of negative events.
Yeah.
We're wired to respond to those immediate threats.
Exactly.
Those sudden changes that can disrupt our lives.
And when it comes to the economy,
Yeah.
those setbacks, those recessions, those market crashes often happen much more quickly than those periods of expansion and growth.
Right, it's like a sudden shock to the system.
They're like those earthquakes or hurricanes,
Okay.
sudden dramatic events that shake things up and demand our attention.
And those negative events are often amplified by the media, right?
Absolutely.
It seems like bad news sells.
It does.
And those economic doom and gloom stories often dominate the headlines.
It's what people want to read.
It's what gets clicks.
And Housel points out that this media focus on negative economic events
Yeah.
further reinforces that perception,
Okay.
that things are always getting worse,
Right.
that the sky is always about to fall.
It's like a constant barrage of negativity.
It can be overwhelming.
It can be, and it can really skew our perceptions.
Exactly. It's like a negativity bias,
Yeah.
both in our own minds and in the media.
Right.
That makes us more attuned to those threats and dangers.
Okay.
Even when those threats might be overblown or exaggerated.
So we need to be aware of that bias
We do.
and take those negative headlines with a grain of salt.
Don't let them control your emotion.
And Housel's third point is that pessimism often sounds smarter,
Really?
more sophisticated, more attuned to the complexities of the world.
Interesting.
It's like those people who are always predicting the worst,
Yeah.
they often come across as more knowledgeable,
Right.
more insightful, more in tune with those hidden dangers
Like they have some secret knowledge.
that the rest of us are oblivious to.
They see the world differently.
They do, and Housel argues that this perception of pessimism as a sign of intelligence
Yeah.
is further reinforced by the fact that pessimists often have more detailed explanations,
Oh, interesting.
more data points, more historical examples
They can really back up their arguments.
to support their gloomy predictions.
It's like they've done their homework.
They've considered all the angles, and they've arrived at this well-reasoned, albeit depressing, conclusion.
And meanwhile,
Yeah.
optimists often come across as naive,
Right.
overly simplistic, or perhaps even delusional in their belief
Yeah.
that things will work out okay.
It's like those optimists are just blindly hoping for the best,
Right.
while those pessimists are the ones who are truly facing the harsh realities of the world.
It's a perception that can be hard to shake.
And that perception, that bias towards pessimism,
Yeah.
can make it difficult to have those constructive conversations about economic challenges and potential solutions.
It can shut down dialogue.
It can create this sense of hopelessness,
Yeah.
this feeling that nothing could be done to change the course of events.
It's a dangerous trap to fall into.
Right, and Housel reminds us that while pessimism
Yeah.
can sometimes be a helpful motivator,
It can scur us to action.
it can also become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
If we believe that things are inevitably going to get worse, we're less likely to invest, less likely to take risks,
Yeah.
less likely to contribute to those positive changes
Right.
that can drive economic growth and opportunity.
We have to believe in a better future.
So it's about finding that balance between acknowledging the challenges,
Yeah.
the risks, the potential downsides,
Right.
while also maintaining a sense of hope, a belief in the possibility of progress, a willingness to contribute to those positive solutions.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that our beliefs, our attitudes, our narratives about the economy
Yeah.
can actually influence the economy itself.
It's a feedback loop.
If we believe in a brighter future, we're more likely to create that future.
I love that. It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passive observers of the economy.
Oh, we're not.
We're active participants.
We are.
And our choices, our actions, our beliefs can shape the outcomes we experience.
We have more power than we think.
And that brings us back to one of the core themes of Housel's book,
Okay.
that our financial decisions aren't just about the numbers.
Right.
They're about our psychology, our emotions, and those narratives that we carry with us.
The stories we tell ourselves.
Okay, so let's talk about these money narratives.
Yeah, they're fascinating.
How do they influence our choices?
Well, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with messages about money.
From everywhere.
From our families, from the media, from society at large.
It's all around us.
And those messages, those stories about wealth, status, and success shape our beliefs about what's possible,
Right.
what's desirable, and what's expected of us.
So it's like those money narratives become part of our cultural DNA,
They do.
influencing our spending habits, our career choices,
Right.
our investment strategies, even our relationships with money itself.
They shape how we see the world.
Exactly. And Housel argues that these narratives,
Yeah.
while sometimes helpful,
Uh-huh.
can also be incredibly limiting.
They can hold us back.
They can trap us in cycles of overspending,
Yeah.
keep us stuck in jobs we hate,
Right.
prevent us from achieving our full financial potential.
We have to break free from those limiting beliefs.
So it's about recognizing those narratives,
Yeah.
questioning their validity,
Uh-huh.
and rewriting those stories that are no longer serving us.
It's about taking control of our own financial destinies.
That's so powerful. It's about reclaiming our financial narratives
Exactly.
and creating stories that inspire us, motivate us, and support our journey towards a more fulfilling and prosperous life.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And that's really at the heart of what Morgan Housel is trying to convey in The Psychology of Money.
Yeah.
It's not just a book about investing or personal finance.
No, it's not.
It's a book about understanding our own relationship with money.
Right.
Those deep-seated beliefs, those emotional triggers, those hidden narratives that shape our decisions and influence our outcomes.
It's about the psychology of money.
It's about recognizing that money is more than just a tool for buying things.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of our values, our priorities, and our aspirations.
It's a powerful force in our lives.
It is.
And understanding its psychological dimensions can be transformative.
It can change the way we see the world.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the psychology of money,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways that our listener can apply to their own financial journey?
Let's see.
What are those nuggets of wisdom that can help them navigate this complex world of money
Yeah.
and make choices that are aligned with their values and goals?
Well, I think one of the most important takeaways is that financial success isn't just about intelligence or luck.
Okay.
It's about behavior.
Behavior, okay.
It's about mastering those psychological factors,
Yeah.
those emotions, those biases, those narratives
Right, the things we've been talking about.
that can sometimes sabotage our best intentions.
It's about understanding ourselves
Uh-huh.
as much as we understand the market.
It's about knowing your own weaknesses.
Right, recognizing those patterns in our own behavior,
Yeah,
making those adjustments that can lead to more positive outcomes.
exactly. And another key takeaway is the power of compounding.
Compounding, the magic of compounding.
Time is your greatest ally when it comes to building wealth.
Start early, invest consistently, and be patient.
That's the recipe.
Let that snowball roll.
Even small contributions made consistently over time can grow into something substantial.
It's amazing how that works.
I remember, it's never too late to start.
That's true.
The sooner you start, the more time those returns have to compound and work their magic.
Those are all great points. Consistency, patience, and discipline. Those are the cornerstones of building long-term wealth.
And remember, Investing has a price.
The price of volatility.
Embrace those ups and downs.
Don't try to time the market. Stay the course.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And finally, remember that true wealth is about having control over your time.
Yeah.
Use your money to create a life that's aligned with your values, your passions, and your goals.
It's about freedom, flexibility.
And the ability to live life on your own terms.
It's about using money as a tool to create a life
Yeah.
that's rich with experiences.
Not just possessions.
Well said. So as you continue on your financial journey,
Yeah.
remember that the most important investment you can make
What's that?
is in understanding yourself.
Understanding yourself.
Because once you understand your own psychology, your own biases, your own narratives,
Yeah.
you'll be well on your way to creating a financial future
Yeah.
that's both prosperous and fulfilling.
That's a great place to leave it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the psychology of money.
My pleasure.
We hope these insights have sparked some new ideas and
Yeah.
inspired you to take control of your own financial destiny.
And remember, the most valuable lessons are often those that we learn not just from the successes of others, but from their mistakes, their setbacks,
Right.
their willingness to keep going.
Keep going, keep learning.
Even when the path ahead seems uncertain.
That's great advice. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure to follow and subscribe.